I knew something was wrong the moment my phone buzzed at 8:14 p.m. that Saturday night. I wasn't doing anything special, just folding laundry on the couch. But the sound of that notification made my stomach twist before I even picked it up. It was a photo. A group photo. I tapped on it without thinking, and suddenly I was staring at my husband, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law. All dressed up, all smiling under the warm lights of an upscale restaurant downtown. And there she was, my mother-in-law, holding a birthday dessert with a sparkler shooting out the top. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. For a second, I didn't breathe. It felt like my chest tightened and just locked. Like my body was refusing to let the pain fully hit me all at once. I kept staring at the picture, hoping I was seeing it wrong somehow. Maybe it was from last year? Maybe it was a memory? Maybe they tagged the wrong person? But then I saw it. The date. Same day. Same day. Same night. Right now. And just like that, the room around me felt colder. Before I tell you everything that happened, stay with me. Because the truth behind that night still doesn't feel real, even now. My name is Sarah. And I've been married to my husband Daniel for 6 years. In those 6 years, I've done everything I could to blend into his family. I brought dishes to dinners, bought thoughtful gifts, offered help at holidays, and really tried to be the kind of daughter-in-law people appreciated. But no matter how hard I tried, I always felt tolerated. Not disliked, but not fully accepted either. Like I was standing in a doorway but never invited into the room. Still, I never imagined they'd do this. Daniel had left the house around 5 that evening. He told me he was running to the store to grab something for work and maybe stopping by the gym afterward. He kissed me on the forehead, slipped on his jacket, and left without a hint that anything was different about tonight. But now seeing him sitting at that restaurant table, smiling like nothing was wrong, I felt something inside me crumble. I didn't cry at first. That surprised me. I thought I would. Instead, I just sat there on the couch, my hands shaking, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might bruise my ribs from the inside. I typed out a message. "Where are you?" Then I erased it. Typed. Really? Erased that too. Finally, I put my phone down. Someone who can smile like that while knowing you're sitting alone at home. Well, maybe they don't deserve the first text. I tried breathing slowly, but nothing settled. Everything in my house suddenly felt too quiet, too still. I found myself staring at the wall, listening for any sound that could distract me from the heaviness pressing on my chest. Nothing came. It was almost an hour before Daniel came home. The moment his key turned in the lock, I felt my entire body stiffen. I didn't know what I would say. I didn't know if I would scream or sit silently. I didn't even know if he would act guilty or pretend nothing was wrong. What I didn't expect was that he would walk in completely normal, like he'd just gone to grab milk. He slipped off his shoes, set his keys on the table, and gave me a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said, like the word wasn't a knife twisting into me. I stared at him. "How was the gym?" He paused. Only for half a second, but I saw it, the flicker of hesitation. "It was fine," he said. "A little crowded." Crowded. What an interesting word to choose considering the crowded table I'd seen him sitting at. I didn't say anything. I just reached for my phone, opened the photo, and turned the screen toward him. The moment his eyes landed on it, the color drained from his face. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He didn't even breathe right. "Daniel," I said softly, my voice shaking in a way I couldn't hide. "Why wasn't I invited?" He closed his eyes for a moment, then sat down heavily on the armchair across from me. His hands were trembling. I could see it, the tiny shake in his fingers, that he tried to hide by folding them together. "It wasn't my decision," he said quietly. "That doesn't make it better." No, then explain it." He rubbed his face with both hands. "It was my mom." Of course it was. But hearing him say it still stung sharper than I expected. He continued. She didn't want any tension tonight. She wanted a stress-free birthday, her exact words. I frowned. Tension? With who? He didn't answer right away. He looked at the floor, then at the wall, then finally at me, like he was trying to figure out how much of the truth he should give. Last week, he said slowly. She told me she felt like you didn't blend well with the family. That dinner conversation felt forced when you were around. That sometimes made her uncomfortable. The words hit like a slap, even though he didn't say them cruelly. I felt my eyes sting, not from sadness, but from humiliation. I make her uncomfortable? I whispered. He swallowed. That's what she said. I tried to process that. I replayed every moment I'd shared with her, holidays, dinners, birthdays, quiet afternoons. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't rude. I wasn't cold. I wasn't anything that would justify this. And you agreed with her? I asked. No, he said quickly. No, Sarah, I didn't. But she told me she wanted just the immediate family there tonight. I wanted to tell you. I swear I did. But I knew it would hurt you. And I thought maybe it would be easier if you didn't know until after. I exhaled sharply, interrupting him. So you lied to me. I didn't lie, he said weakly. I just didn't tell the truth. That is lying. He didn't argue. He couldn't. The silence between us grew so heavy, I thought it would choke me. He looked small somehow, like the weight of what he'd done was finally settling on him, but it wasn't enough. Not for me. Not after sitting home alone while my entire in-law family toasted to a birthday in a beautiful restaurant with candlelight, music, and laughter while I wondered why my husband wasn't answering me. You should have stood up for me, I said finally. I know. You should have said that if your wife isn't welcome, you're not going. I know. You should have told me the truth. I know. His voice broke on that last one. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw the man I married, not the man who had betrayed me. What else aren't you telling me? I asked it. He hesitated. Too long. My stomach twisted again. Daniel. He closed his eyes. There was one more reason. The room felt like it tilted. Tell me. He took a breath like it physically hurt him. Your sister-in-law, Emily. She told my mom she didn't want you there because you make everything about yourself. I stared at him. My voice disappeared. My thoughts scattered. Me? Make things about myself? That wasn't even close to who I was. And my mom believed her. He added quietly. She thought having you there would make the night tense. My heart didn't just drop, it shattered. I had always supported Emily. I'd helped her move apartments, listened to her vent about her job, watched her kids when she needed a break. I was never anything but kind to her. And she said that behind my back? The betrayal spread wider than just one dinner. It was all of them. It was layered. It was intentional. Wow, I whispered. Just wow. Daniel looked at me, his eyes shining in a way that made him look almost childlike. Sarah, I'm sorry. I should have defended you. Yes, I said quietly. You should have. That night, after he went to bed, I sat alone in the living room with only the sound of the refrigerator humming in the background. I stared at the wall and replayed every moment of the past few years. All the times I tried to belong. All the effort I put in. All the times I ignored comments, let things go, tried again. And for what? I realized something painful but important. Some people don't dislike you because of who you are. They dislike you because of who they think you are. Because someone else decided your place before you walked into the room. And sometimes, even the people who love you won't stand up for you. The next morning, I woke up before Daniel. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and looked out the window at the street below. The world looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. When Daniel finally came in, he sat across from me. He didn't touch his coffee. He didn't touch anything. Are we okay? He asked softly. I looked at him, not angry, not yelling, just tired. Eventually, I said. But not today. He nodded. What do you want me to do? Start by telling your mother I won't be attending anything else until she apologizes. And I want it to be her idea, not yours. He swallowed. Okay. And you, I added, need to decide if you're going to keep choosing the easy way out, or if you're going to choose your wife. His eyes filled with emotion. I choose you. I nodded slowly. Then prove it. He reached for my hand. I didn't move away. But I didn't hold him either. Not yet. Some wounds don't heal overnight. Later that afternoon, he went to his mom's house. I didn't go with him. I sat on the couch, knees pulled to my chest, waiting not for an apology, but for clarity. For truth. For something honest for once. When he came back, his face was pale. What happened? I asked. She admitted it, he said. All of it. And? She said she didn't think you were good enough for our family. She said she never wanted me to marry you. The words hit hard, but they didn't break me. Not anymore. And then, he continued, she said if you came last night, you'd make things uncomfortable because you always try too hard. I felt my jaw tighten. Trying too hard? So I was wrong no matter what I did. Did she apologize? I asked. No. He said quietly. She said you should apologize for making her feel uncomfortable. I laughed. Not from humor, from disbelief. And what did you say? I asked. He looked me in the eyes. I told her that if she can't respect my wife, she doesn't get to see me. That sentence hung in the air between us. And I walked out. He said. My heart didn't heal at that moment, but something inside me shifted. He had finally chosen me. Not perfectly. Not early enough. But truly, we're still working through everything. Healing takes time, especially when betrayal comes from the people you try so hard to love. But I learned something that night, something I'll never forget. Sometimes the empty seat at the table isn't a loss. Sometimes it's protection. And now that I know the truth, I'll never look at that family the same way again. I wish I could say everything got better immediately after that night, but real life doesn't wrap itself neatly. Days passed in this strange quiet between me and my husband, not tense, but cautious, like we were both learning how to step without reopening old wounds. But something unexpected began happening. And it wasn't happening to me. It was happening to his mother. The first sign came a week later. Daniel had barely pulled into the driveway after work when his phone buzzed nonstop. He didn't check it until he came inside. And when he finally did, I watched his face shift from annoyance to confusion, to something close to disbelief. It's my mom, he said, holding the phone like it was too hot to touch. She keeps calling. Why? I asked, not curious, just tired. She said she hasn't heard from anyone all week. Not from me, not from my sister, not from my brother. She thinks everyone's avoiding her. I blinked slowly. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry. Karma doesn't always come in dramatic explosions. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the form of isolation that looks suspiciously like the exclusion she gave to me. She asked if she upset someone. Daniel added softly. I raised an eyebrow. Did she now? He nodded. She wants me to come over and talk. And are you going? I asked. He took a long breath. No, not until she apologizes to you. I meant what I said. I didn't respond. I just let that settle in the air because hearing it again, without hesitation this time, landed differently inside me. Like the part of me that had cracked open was starting to seal again slowly. A few more days went by. Then his sister, Emily, reached out. Not to me, of course not, but to Daniel. According to her, their mom had tried to host a casual family lunch. And not a single person showed. Not her daughter. Not her son. Not even her sister, who usually never missed an opportunity to gather. Apparently word had gotten around, not because we spread it intentionally, but because people talk. Families talk. And everyone had their own story, their own moment of feeling dismissed by her. My situation was just the match that lit the pile. Daniel told his sister he wasn't ready to reconnect. And for the first time since I'd known him, I saw my husband actually mean it. She's been treating all of us like we're disposable, he said quietly. Now she's realizing we're not. Karma. Showing up politely at her doorstep. 2 weeks passed before the next shift happened. I was in the kitchen slicing vegetables. When Daniel walked in holding a thin envelope, "It's from my mom," he said. Cautiously, I wiped my hands on a towel and took it from him. He didn't open it. He wanted me to decide whether it deserved space in our home. Inside was a handwritten note. The first I'd ever received from her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. But it was real. She wrote that these past weeks had been lonely, that she didn't realize how much she depended on her children's presence until she didn't have it. She said she had been reflecting, a word I never thought I'd hear from her, and that maybe she had judged me too quickly. Then came the line that surprised me. "I think I mistook your kindness for trying too hard, and that was my mistake. Not yours." I read it twice, then a third time. "It's not a full apology," Daniel said from behind me. "But it's more than she's ever given anyone." He was right. And somehow, it mattered. Not because I needed her acceptance, but because life has a way of circling back, forcing people to sit with the same emptiness they once handed to others. "That's karma," I whispered without thinking. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, it kind of is. We didn't rush to her house. We didn't call immediately. She needed time to learn what it felt like to be left out of a table she set herself, the same way she had left me out of hers. But eventually, 3 days later, we went. Not to reconcile everything, but to draw a boundary and see if the woman behind that letter was the same woman sitting in front of us. When she opened the door, her eyes were red. Not from anger, but from the kind of exhaustion that only comes from being forced to face your own reflection for too long. She didn't hug me. She didn't force anything unnatural. She just looked at me and said quietly, "I shouldn't have done that to you." Those words, I didn't expect to hear them. Not from her. Not ever. "And I'm sorry," she added. "It won't happen again." I stood there for a moment, letting the weight of her words sink in. Not to forgive instantly. Forgiveness isn't a switch, but to acknowledge that some people learn through losing, and some only grow when they feel what they made others feel. We talked. Not perfectly. Not warmly. But honestly. Which was already more than before. As we left her house, Daniel slid his fingers through mine and held them tightly. "You okay?" he asked. And for the first time since that awful night, I realized I was, because karma didn't show up in anger or revenge or dramatic payback. It came in silence. In the distance. In reflection. In consequence she couldn't escape because they came from within her own family. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. Sometimes the universe handles everything for you, quietly. Gracefully. Until the people who hurt you finally see themselves clearly. And I learned something I'll never forget. When someone leaves you out, life will eventually show them exactly what being left out feels like, and that's the kind of justice no birthday dinner can cover up. I didn't expect peace to come quietly, but that's exactly how it arrived. Not in a dramatic conversation or a tearful apology, and definitely not through confrontation. It came in small, almost invisible moments over the next few weeks, like my life was returning to itself piece by piece. I wasn't trying to win, and I wasn't waiting for anything to crumble on her side. I had stopped looking backward. That alone felt like power. One afternoon, I found myself sitting on the porch with a warm cup of tea, the sunlight soft on my face. Daniel stepped outside and sat next to me without saying anything at first. He had been different lately, quieter, gentler, more present. Almost like he finally understood the parts of me he'd taken for granted. Mom asked if she could invite us to dinner next week. He said casually. I smiled a little. "And what did you say?" "I told her it would be up to you. And that if we go, the respect has to be mutual." Those words, mutual respect, landed deeper than he probably realized. It wasn't just about his mother. It was about him choosing finally to stand beside me instead of in the middle, hoping no one got upset. "I'm not ready," I said honestly. "But maybe one day." "That's okay," he whispered. "There's no pressure." For the first time in a long time, I felt like my voice mattered. Not just in the relationship, but within myself. I wasn't trying to be included anymore. I wasn't trying to prove I belonged. I wasn't waiting for approval that may never come. I had stopped shrinking myself for a chair at a table. That wasn't built for me. In that realization. It was freeing in a way I didn't know I needed. A week later, I received a text from my mother-in-law. Not long, not emotional, just a simple message. I hope you're doing well. I understand if you need space. No guilt. No blame. No manipulation. Just space, exactly what I needed and never thought she'd offer. Empowerment doesn't always come from standing on top of something. Sometimes it comes from stepping back and choosing yourself. I didn't respond right away. Not out of anger, but because I was learning to respond on my time. Not anyone else's expectations, and as strange as it sounds, giving myself permission to take things slowly felt like reclaiming a part of me I had lost in the chaos of trying so hard to fit in. A few days later, I did reply. Thank you. I hope you're well too. That was all. No opening doors, no closing them either. Just balance. I kept my boundaries. She kept hers. And for once, we weren't pulling on opposite ends of a rope, trying to win something neither of us really understood. Daniel noticed the change too. One evening he said, "You're different lately." In a good way. I shrugged softly. I think I just stopped carrying things that weren't mine. He looked at me with this warm, almost relieved expression. I'm proud of you. And something inside me settled. The truth is, empowerment isn't about proving someone wrong. It isn't about payback. It isn't even about getting the apology you think you deserve. It's about rising into the version of yourself who can walk past old wounds without letting them reopen. Months later, when we finally did go to a small family dinner, not a fancy restaurant, not a big gathering, just a simple meal, something felt different. She greeted me with genuine softness in her eyes, not forced politeness. She asked how I'd been, really been, not out of obligation, but curiosity. No tension. No coldness. No hidden barbs. Just two women who had walked through something uncomfortable, and were finally learning how to stand in the same room without stepping on old bruises. Forgiveness didn't happen that night, but understanding began, and I realized something powerful. You don't heal by making someone else feel what you felt. You heal by giving yourself the love they COULD single quotes T. By the end of the night, as we left her home, I felt lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had changed. I had grown. I had stopped chasing acceptance that wasn't meant for me. And that shift, that quiet internal shift, was the most empowering thing of all. As we drove home, Daniel reached over and took my hand the way he used to when we were younger. When life felt simpler and love felt easy. You okay? He asked. This time, I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I said softly. I really am. Because closure didn't come from her. It didn't come from him. It came from me deciding that peace was worth more than pride, and growth was worth more than proving a point. And in the end, that was all the closure I ever needed. The days after that quiet moment on the porch felt different. Not lighter, exactly, but steadier. It was as if the ground beneath me had finally stopped shifting. I wasn't thinking about what happened at the restaurant anymore. Not constantly, at least. The pain was still there, yes, but it wasn't steering me. I was finally in control of my own steps. Daniel felt the shift too. I noticed it in the little things. The way he lingered a moment longer before leaving for work. The way he asked real questions instead of the polite surface ones. The way he listened without rushing to fix anything. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was intention. One evening, we were cleaning up after dinner when he said, "You seem more at peace lately." Not the same, but better. I rinsed off a dish, letting the warm water run across my hands. I think I'm finally seeing things the way they are, not the way I wanted them to be. He leaned against the counter, watching me the way people do when they're afraid to ruin a moment. Does that include US? I looked at him. Really looked at him. The lines on his face told stories, stress, sorrow, long work days, and the quiet fear of losing something he finally realized mattered. Yes, I said softly. It includes us. He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for weeks. Later that night, when the house was quiet, he came into the living room holding a small stack of paper. "These are the boundaries we talked about," he said. I wrote them down so I could stay accountable. I took them from him, touched by the effort. They weren't dramatic. They weren't demands. Just lines drawn in honesty. No more secrets. No more leaving me uninformed. No more choosing comfort over truth. No more avoiding conversations because they feel heavy. And most importantly, if she disrespects you again, we leave together. Not you leave. Not I'll talk to her. We leave together. For the first time in a long time. Something inside me loosened. Something I didn't know I'd been holding tight. Maybe healing wasn't a destination. Maybe it was a small shift at a time. And this was one of them. A week later, my phone buzzed with a message. From her. The mother and law. It wasn't long. Just a quiet line. If you're open to it, I'd like to speak to you privately sometime. In the past, that would have made my stomach twist, but now, I felt something different, something calm. I didn't respond immediately. I made myself a cup of tea, sat outside on the porch where the sun was low and gentle, and thought about the woman I had been all those years I tried to win her approval. The apologizing version of me. The shrinking version of me. The exhausted version of me. That woman did not exist anymore. And maybe she sensed that. Eventually I typed, "I'm open to talking. But not about the past. Only about the future." It took her an hour to respond. But when she did, it was the simplest message I've ever gotten from her. "That's fair." Funny how 2 words can feel like a whole shift in the air. That weekend, we met at a small cafe, not fancy, not formal, just neutral ground. She arrived first, sitting with her hands folded tightly in front of her. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but emotionally. Life can humble even the strongest people. When I sat down, she didn't pretend everything was normal. She didn't hide behind her usual polite mask. She just looked at me for a long moment before saying, "I didn't understand you." Then softer. "And I didn't try. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I just listened." "I thought you were trying too hard," she continued, her voice trembling. "And I realize now you were trying. Because I wasn't giving you anything back. It wasn't an apology wrapped in excuses. It wasn't a justification. It was truth. Raw and rare. I don't expect forgiveness today," she said. "I just hope we can start differently." I let out a slow breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "You hurt me," I said simply. "But I'm willing to move forward if you are." She nodded, eyes softening in a way I had never seen from her before. And that was it. No dramatic embrace. No overnight transformation. Just 2 women choosing maturity over ego. When I got home, Daniel was waiting at the porch steps. "How'd it go?" he asked gently. I sat beside him, leaning into his warm shoulder. "It went better than I expected." He smiled, not the relieved smile of a man escaping guilt, but the proud smile of a man who finally understood the strength of the woman beside him. As the sun set, painting everything gold and quiet, I realized something. Healing isn't loud. Forgiveness isn't a performance. And closure doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like sitting beside the man you love, knowing that the storm has passed. And that you survived it with your dignity intact. And for the first time since that painful night, I felt something I thought I'd lost. Hope. The weeks that followed moved quietly, like the slow settling of dust after a storm. Nothing dramatic happened. No big family confrontations. No sudden apologies from every direction. Just small, steady moments. The kind that rebuild life without you even noticing. Daniel and I found our rhythm again. Not the old one we had before all this, but something new. More intentional. More honest. More equal. He didn't tiptoe around me anymore, and I didn't shrink myself to make everything easier. We talked, really talked, sometimes late into the night, sometimes in short, gentle sentences while washing dishes. There was no urgency, no desperation, just 2 people choosing each other all over again. And the mother-in-law? She kept her distance, Not out of avoidance, but out of respect. When she did reach out, it was thoughtful. Brief messages. Kind check-ins. Questions asked with sincerity instead of assumptions. It wasn't perfect. Nothing truly human ever is, but she was trying. And that counted for more than I expected it would. One afternoon, she invited us to a small, quiet lunch at her home. Not a big event. Not a performance. Just a table set for four. Her, Daniel, me, and his sister Emily. For a moment, I hesitated. Not out of fear, but because I wanted to make sure I wasn't stepping backward into old patterns. But Daniel asked me softly, "Do you want to go?" And the fact that he asked, that he gave me the choice, made the answer easier. We went. The house felt strangely peaceful when we arrived. No sharp comments. No critical glances. No tension coiled in the air. Just a woman who looked older than I remembered, standing in her kitchen and trying her best. She didn't over-apologize. She didn't pretend nothing happened. She simply placed a bowl of salad on the table and said, "Thank you for coming." And for the first time in years. Those words felt real. Emily was quiet at first, watching me with a mixture of awkwardness and something like regret. She didn't apologize directly that day. Maybe she wasn't ready. But she passed me the bread bowl with a small, meaningful smile. A beginning, imperfect as it was. Lunch was simple. Soft conversation, warm food, a few awkward silences that surprisingly didn't feel heavy. And somewhere between the clinking of forks and a shared laugh over an old family memory I'd never heard before, I realized the most unexpected thing. I felt included, not fully, not magically. But for the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider trying to force my way in. After we left, I stepped out onto the porch of our home, letting the warm afternoon wrap around me. Daniel joined me, hands in his pockets, watching me with that gentle look he reserves for the moments he knows matter. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded. "Yeah, I am." And I meant it. Not because everything was fixed. Not because the past didn't hurt anymore. But because I had changed. I had grown into someone who didn't chase love, but welcomed it when it came in its own imperfect way. Someone who didn't need everyone to understand her. As long as she understood herself. It struck me then, peace isn't something people hand you. It's something you build in the small spaces left after everything falls apart. And I built mine slowly. Patiently, one choice at a time. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and painted our porch in gold, Daniel slipped his arm around me and rested his head against mine. No words. Just warmth. And in that still, quiet moment, I knew the story wasn't about betrayal or exclusion anymore. It wasn't even about forgiveness. It was about rediscovery of love, of boundaries, of myself. The wound didn't disappear, but it stopped defining me. And the life ahead felt wide open again. That night, as I turned off the porch light and stepped inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I was home. Truly home. In my heart. And in my life. And that was the perfect ending I didn't even know I was waiting for. If this story touched something in you, don't leave just yet. Every family has secrets. Every heart carries scars. And the next story might be the one that mirrors your own. Hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. Because the truth we uncover next will stay with you long after the screen goes dark.